What is up? Welcome back. Continuing with our Mayfly, here we are going into the larval stage, or the nymph stage, and there really is only one pattern that is the best. It's just the best. It's a pheasant tail. It's just a bead pheasant tail. Here I'm putting in a wire. This is a rather big one. I think this is size 12, but I'm putting in a size BR wire. This is a curved hook. Next comes in is the pheasant tail. This was taken by me, and I have a really funny story about it that I talked about on my podcast in the film. So anyways, here's a pheasant tail. You don't need a big tail. A little, because mayfly larvae don't have super long tails. At least most of them don't. So it doesn't need to be as long as the body. It's just a little tiny tail, and you can't really see it there. But so what I do is I wrap it twice, and then I'm going to continue wrapping, securing my wire down. Great. And you want to leave about a bead length for the thorax and the legs and everything. So when I get there, I'll start wrapping my pheasant tail away from me. You can taper this if you want, but I typically don't. You should definitely also be using hackle pliers. I am not, like an idiot, because it's so easy to let one of these puppies go. Alright, so I'm going to catch it right there, giving myself about a bead length behind. Now, I'm going to wrap the wire towards me in sort of a crossing pattern. This will offer the ultimate protection for your pheasant tail, because the fibers are pretty weak. So when you get to the top, boom, cross it over, lock it in, and away we go. Do a little helicopter. Secure it in again. Cool. So now the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down. This is just some Flashaboo, just a pretty thick piece. Alright. So I'm going to catch that right on top. It's really important that it's right on top. Alright. I'm actually going to fold both pieces back just to make it doubly shiny. Just kidding, it's just a lot easier. And then here I just have some thin skin that I've cut. This is just some black, and I am going to catch that as well. See if I can trim that off. Okay, I'm going to secure everything, and I'm going to work all the way back to my pheasant tail body, because when you pull this forward, you don't want there to be a gap between your body there and what you're pulling forward. So I go as far back as I can. Great. Then a lot of people will use peacock herl. I think that that is ridiculous. It's not really, actually. It's pretty normal, but I like this a lot better. And this is peacock dubbing. I know, I'm getting fancy on everyone. So what I like to do is go really stuff it in there. Go about halfway-ish. About halfway. Might be a little too much. Okay, that's pretty good. And right here, I'm actually going to add in my wings. So if I could find my feather, there it is. So here's my feather. This is a partridge feather. I have basically just cut the end off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it in like this, and those are going to be my wings. So right about there, you can measure them out. And then you'll just come in, catch them. You can adjust them after you've caught them. Don't cinch down just yet, because if you cinch down right now, then the feathers will go flying and you won't be able to adjust them. So just be patient. How's that look? Oh, that's beautiful. Alright, so I'm going to do some more wraps, cinch them down, and then I can come in and cut the excess off. Okay, so there are my wings. How are they looking over here? Pretty good. I don't like huge wings, not a huge wing fan like that. Okay, so what I do now is I just take a little bit of the peacock dubbing and I just do one more wrap. Boom. That basically just secures everything, holds everything in place. Then I'm going to take all three of my fibers, the thin skin and the flash. I'm going to hook it. Great. Got it tied in there. And that's what we got going. It's great. It's pretty fuzzy right now, so let's take care of that. The peacock dubbing, much easier to work with, but a little messier. You know, the peacock, the regular stuff, is pretty clean, where this stuff is not very clean. But it adds, you know, makes a little buggier. All right, so how are we looking? There's our wings, perfect. Our body, perfect. Everything else, perfect. So what I'm going to do now is whip finish. And you're like, well, what about this little stuff up here? Don't worry about that. This is also an 8/0 thread. You don't want to use too bulky of a thread, because this part, that collar that we just made, you definitely don't want it to look too big and bulky. I don't know if I have any Raid. Raid is my favorite UV, but I think I'm out, and I'm pretty much out. Raid is by far my favorite. Solarez is what I'm about to use now, is my second favorite, but Raid is by far my favorite. And so we're going to add a little casing on top. Just a little bubble there. You see that little bubble? Just adds, it's kind of a nice little casing that looks, you see that? Oh, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? It just sort of looks like a exoskeleton, you know, exoskeletal feature. And yeah, it adds a little extra protection to the fly. And so there, boom, there's our fly. Perfect little pheasant tail. And they just, it just flat out works. So, you know, it's hard to say, oh, well, this is a better mayfly larval imitation than this, because this just really looks like it and works really well. So that's your pheasant tail. That's your larval stage of your mayfly, and that's it. So the next, we're going to do an emerger, and I have a great emerger that has worked. It has worked so well for me. So I'm really excited to talk about that. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Take care.